Welcome to the Municipality of South Dundas regular council meeting with its team for Monday, January 30th, 2023. This is our sixth meeting. I'd like to recall this meeting to order as we reconvene from our closed session that started at 5:15. First item, number 3, confirmation of agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments? I have one. I'd like to add 10E, Library Committee update from under board discussions. 10E. Any other additions, deletions? Seeing none, I have a motion that seeing none, we will move to for disclosure of pecuniary interest and the nature thereof. Are there any? Seeing none, we'll move to number 5, adoption of minutes. So I have a motion that the minutes of January 9th of his regular and in-camera meeting of council be adopted. Are there any errors or omissions from that meeting minutes? Seeing none, could I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Smith, seconder. Councillor Ward, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll start off with our first delegation tonight. We have Ontario Provincial Police, our Community Mobilization Officer, Jim Blanchett, with us tonight. Welcome, Jim.
Welcome. Thanks for the welcome, and appreciate being here, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, and staff. Always a pleasure to attend these sorts of meetings. One of the things I just wanted to stress, because it's a all new group here, is that I've passed out my cards to you, so please feel free if there's anything that comes up that you have, because I know members of the public will reach out to you. They may have a police issue or a concern of something in the community. Just reach out to me anytime. Don't wait for me to come back here. Don't wait till you happen to see another police officer. Please, I'm available all the time, so give me a call if there's anything that we can do for you. We're more than happy to do that. A lot of times we can sort out things pretty quickly, so cool. Please don't hesitate. I've sent along our police report for all of last year. There was a couple of things between the pandemic and people switching roles in our organization. So I just did a comparison, 21-22. I won't go into details, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I don't see anything particularly concerning in those stats. And then I would ask council to consider whether you want more or less information or what you would like from me, and including how often you would like me here. I typically do township meetings quarterly, but if anything particular comes up that's more pressing, then I can come more or less. If you find that's more than you want to see me, that's fine too, whatever works for you. So I guess I would just, before I go any further, just ask if there are any questions about the report. I know it was provided in advance.
Seeing none, you can continue, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the information from 21 to 22 is pretty consistent and consistent with everything else across the province. You'll see violent crime is up a little bit, but keep in mind it's such a small amount that the percentage seems high, but it's actually a small number of occurrences. And then what I will do is provide you with quarterly reports, updates, so you can see as we're progressing along the year what's happening here in South Dundas. And just a little update on a few of the things that we're doing with the OPP right now. My role as Community Mobilization Officer for SD&G is developing and utilizing community partnerships for the benefit of those that reside in our area. So I live here in South Dundas, but I do all of SD&G. And what we have now coming up in March is we're planning a human trafficking event. We have some specialized people and service providers across the province. So we'll extend that invitation to council if anyone will be available on March 23rd. There's some good speakers. And mostly these types of events, not only do they provide a benefit to our community, but they enhance our partnerships, and it's good for everyone to know each other and know what each service provider does out there in the counties and the city of Cornwall. So that's really all I have, unless there are any other questions.
Questions from council tonight? Policing is a commitment to serve and protect the rights of everyone. So on behalf of council, Jim, thank you for coming tonight. I commend the diligent work that you and the staff of the OPP and our local detachment do. Continue to meet the needs of our community, so we thank you for that. And we hope the reports are small when you come back next quarter. And we'll enjoy your next visit. And we will certainly reach out if we have any issues or problems. So thank you for that offer and invitation. So
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, next delegation is 6B, Affordable Housing Home Ownership Program, Habitat for Humanity.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here this evening. If I don't know you already, my name is Brecken Cares, and I am the Community Engagement Coordinator with Habitat for Humanity, Cornwall and the Counties. So, Habitat for Humanity, Cornwall and the Counties has been working since 1999 to build affordable homes for low-income working families. We work to break the cycle of poverty that can very easily affect multiple generations. What makes us different from a bank or mortgage broker is our ability to offer these families a no-interest mortgage, and we do not require a down payment. Partnership is extremely important, perhaps the most important part of what we do with our partner families. We service the majority of SDNG, Cornwall, and Akwesasne. Our service area is denoted by postal codes, as divided by Habitat Canada, and we are very lucky to have great working relationships with our surrounding affiliates. We work hard to raise funds to be able to keep our home build program building. We operate our Restore at 1400 Vincent Massey Drive in Cornwall. That helps to generate funds to offset administration costs. It also helps with landfill diversion and offers a cost-effective shopping option for our community. To date, we have built 17 homes, the last right here in South Dundas on land donated generously by your predecessors. And this safe, affordable home in Winchester Springs will soon be home for a local family. I want to start by outlining our mortgage model and the long-term relationship that comes with it. Our partner families must be ready for home ownership. Home ownership. Such a seemingly simple concept, but that means so much. Let's unpack what home ownership is when it comes to Habitat for Humanity. We start with qualification. For a traditional mortgage, you work with your bank or your broker, and you must provide various forms of documentation related to income, debt, credit, etc. For a Habitat mortgage, you must also provide that information, but you need to take a few extra steps with us. I didn't have to tell my mortgage broker why I needed a new house. But with Habitat, you have to have a demonstrated need. That need can be a variety of elements: overcrowding, safety, affordability, and as we have alluded to, our partner families must be considered low income. We determine this by using the low-income threshold as set out by Statistics Canada, and this takes into account the number of people in the household and the value of earned income coming in. Once we have evaluated all of these elements, we conduct a series of interviews because we want to see why you need to partner with Habitat for Humanity. Through these initial stages, we must see a willingness to partner from any potential family. And when a partner family is selected to work with Habitat Cornwall, they must dedicate 500 hours of volunteer time with our organization. It's worth noting that 150 of those hours can come from friends and family, and 40 of those hours are part of a homeowner education module to help give the tools that you need as a homeowner. This willingness to partner is paramount. As a partner family goes through the selection process and home buying process, they are expected to work within our partnership agreement, which includes a comprehensive code of conduct. And adherence to this is what maintains the ability to purchase a Habitat home. Appropriate conduct and behavior builds upon the values of Habitat Cornwall and Habitat Canada. Trust and respect, accountability and dependability, communication and collaboration, fairness and flexibility. Strict observance of the code is fundamental to the activity and reputation of Habitat Cornwall and our partner families. Upon completion of the home build, local real estate appraisers, Enns McEachran, Pace and Maloney and Associates, a very long-standing relationship, evaluates the home to determine its fair market value. This becomes the selling price of the home to our partner families. The mortgage is held by Habitat for Humanity and amortized for 20 to 30 years, depending on a number of factors. Mortgage payments are geared to a family's income and is never more than 30% of the household income. Also of note, we will never charge a partner family more than what a traditional mortgage would be. Mortgage payments are reevaluated annually in line with tax time, but partner families have the responsibility of disclosing any changes to us throughout the year. Again, this goes back to the honesty and the trust that is so important within a Habitat mortgage. All of these mortgage payments that I've just told you about are reinvested into our home build program, meaning an investment today has a positive impact for the next 20 to 30 years as the mortgage is paid off. Throughout our 24-year history, we have had 2 partner families pay off their mortgages. And within the next 4 years, we have 2 other local low-income families who will be paying off their mortgages. It's worth noting that both of those homes in North Dundas and South Stormont were built on land generously donated by those townships as well. I want to make an extremely important point here. The affordability of a Habitat home is not the purchase price of the home. It is, in fact, the mortgage model. Knowing that every dollar you have paid into your mortgage is paying down principal and property taxes, of course, is a wonderful feeling. Partner families are able to effectively and responsibly build equity and stability. As previously mentioned, partner families purchase the completed home at fair market value. Nationally and locally, we have seen home prices rising year over year. According to the Cornwall Real Estate Board, which covers this area, the average price of homes locally was up 17.4% in 2022 over 2021. While it is expected that those prices will be cooling due to rising interest rates, the increased fair market value is still significant. For the average home buyer, rising interest rates, the increased fair market value, bidding wars and competition, and more make it extremely difficult to become first-time home buyers. And that's not even taking the need for a down payment into consideration. By not requiring a down payment from our partner families, we are further contributing to the affordability of the mortgage and home ownership. At this point, we have seen 7 interest rate hikes in 2022, 1 more last week, and at least 2 or 3 more are predicted for 2023. Not having to worry about renewing or refinancing with uncertain rates allows Habitat homeowners to focus on other important parts of their lives. Of the builds we have completed to date, 6 of our partner families have moved from local social housing. That means not only did those 6 families get into better situations, but it also opened up much needed space for 6 more families and their networks. What it all comes down to is that we know there's an affordability crisis and housing shortage globally, and we are seeing it here locally every single day. But with our home ownership and home build program, we're able to build mutually respectful relationships that can lead to positive outcomes. We all see the gorgeous custom homes that are being built by our local home builders. We know that choices in home design can be limitless. At Habitat, we are not custom home builders. We build safe, decent, affordable homes for local low-income families. We build based on the needs of a partner family, not a wish list. Those needs can include accessibility features and number of bedrooms. Building homes is an expensive business, and the cost of the build has increased considerably. For example, floor joists and roof trusses in 2019 cost approximately $6,000. In 2022, similar materials cost $18,000. Building costs and supply chain challenges are anticipated to continue and impact all of us. Habitat homes are built to all codes and standards with all new materials as required by any builder within the province of Ontario. Simply put, this is our minimum standard. We are also extremely proud of the fact that our projects exceed National Energy Code for buildings, energy consumption, and greenhouse gas emission standards. Say that 3 times fast. This means not only do our families have an affordable mortgage, but an affordable home to operate afterwards. We are also proud to say that the completed home in Winchester Springs has passed all inspections and received final occupancy, so it is ready to house a local low-income family. We are extremely grateful to the municipality of South Dundas for all of their support as we have gone through this process, and of course for donating that land. Partnering with local municipalities and townships, as well as all other levels of government, make it possible to turn previously vacant land into safe, affordable housing that generates residential taxes, goodwill, and a brighter future for another local family. We are all keenly aware of the lack of affordable and available housing stock for purchase or for rent. Your support of Habitat projects makes it possible for all of us to be a part of the solution and the bigger picture for building stronger communities. Now, we are very proud that our projects help to enhance economic growth and prosperity while improving the quality of life. We partner with local groups and businesses on a number of levels, from financial donations to contributions of material and skilled labor. Not only did the municipality donate the building lot in Winchester Springs, but the Training Institute floated the equipment down for us and completed the excavation. Attell Air contributed the majority of the HVAC labor and material. Baker Tilly fundraised within their staff, contributed financially, and came out and helped us out with some volunteer labor. We even had members of the local OPP detachment for a day come out and volunteer with us. And perhaps in one of our longest relationships, the construction technology program at St. Lawrence College contributed 6 weeks of construction labor with their students. That relationship has been active for more than a decade, and one that I'm always extremely proud to share. Now, in 2018, Habitat Cornwall realigned our building program timelines and processes. We now follow suitable donated land. This allows us to reduce our overall costs while helping us build partnerships with active participants. Previously, we were only available and only able to accept service land by donation. However, after internal and external discussions, our board agreed to accept unserviced land. Our research and discussions prove that the cost of installing services, whether it be well, septic, or both, can be more efficient than waiting for or having to purchase serviced land. Unserviced land also recognizes the realities of our largely rural population. Wells and septics are simply a fact of life for many of us. All of this has helped us reach our goal of building more local affordable homes. This is what we have done as we prepare for our upcoming Maxville project. The Township of North Glengarry has donated a service building lot in Maxville, which will accommodate our very first ever semi-detached home build. Next year, we will be building in Green Valley on land donated by South Glengarry. And our plan is to return to Green Valley again in 2027 to build on another donated township lot. But as you can see here on our 10-year build calendar, there are 4 more years that are empty and need land. This council's current mandate will end in 2026. But if you are able to evaluate your vacant land inventory, we would relish the opportunity to work together again. And that could mean that affordable home ownership and partnership could be a part of your legacy. On a personal note, I am an extremely proud resident of South Dundas. I love getting to say that we own Aidan McIntosh's old farm. Heck, we named our youngest child for him. A couple of weeks ago, Aidan's nephew, Don Garlow, actually gave us an aerial photo of our property from 1985. I have spent hours staring at it, seeing the changes that have been made, and making plans to expand our gardens to match what was there 40 years ago. I want to help make those same hopes and dreams a reality for other local families, for my neighbors. I have seen firsthand the positive impacts that we are able to make here. Everything I do is to ensure I leave this municipality a little better for my kids and maybe even their kids one day. And isn't that what every family wants? All language aside, the concept of home is universal. It has been agreed on an international level that housing is a basic human right, and it is our humanity and our hearts that will make Habitat houses into homes. So let me leave you with a quick recap. Habitat for Humanity families are happier, healthier, and more financially secure after moving into their safe, affordable homes. 65% report an improvement in children's confidence, and 61% see an increase in activity participation. 23% of parents go back to school, and 34% of parents get better paying jobs. Food bank use decreases, and overall health improves. And above all, 89% of families' lives are improved. Now, do you know a family who would benefit from partnership with Habitat for Humanity by building a 30-year relationship? Please encourage them to fill out a pre-application on our website, habitatcornwall.org. And there are a few simple qualifications to consider, and then our family services team takes over and works their magic. As discussed, partner families must meet low income measures, have a need, have earned income, and be willing to partner with us to dedicate 500 hours of volunteer service to the organization. But remember, all of that starts with you, with your consideration of available building lots. I know that you are heading into budget deliberations later this week, and I certainly hope that you will keep us and local low-income families working families in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions, Brecklin? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. Is it always new build, or do you guys do any renovation of surplus properties?
So we've never done anything like that. However, habitats across Canada and the US do have those types of programs. We are always open to those discussions. It's just not been part of our mandate to this point because the right opportunity hasn't really presented itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Just a comment. One thing I did learn from your presentation is that I did not know that Habitat for Humanity previous to now would only accept serviced lots. And now it's open to any lot, which is good because that opens up a much larger available land base that you could acquire. So I didn't know that, so I learned something new tonight.
Excellent. Well, I was offered the opportunity to visit the new build in Winchester Springs back in the fall. So I commend the last council for donating that building lot and getting that project off the ground. And I think the team, we've had some discussions as we've been going forward in closed sessions. We would definitely like to look at a future property, but leave it with us for now. And in our future deliberations, we'll hopefully find something to potentially get South Dundas back on your list.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much.
Thanks for coming tonight. Okay. We can move to item 6C, City of Cornwall Housing Overview. Thank you and welcome.
Sorry, just do I open the presentation from here or is it? Oh, great, fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
you can just arrow down as you flip slides. We can see it and there's a view on your side.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good evening, thank you, Council. So Melissa Morgan wasn't able to join me this evening, so I'm here representing the City of Cornwall as the Service Manager for Human Services for Cornwall at SD&G. So thank you very much again for having me here this evening. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but it essentially gives you the sense of the scope of the work that the City of Cornwall does as the Service Manager for Cornwall and SD&G. So we essentially have three divisions. One of those is our Ontario Works Division, our Children's Services Division, and our Housing Services Division. As the Consolidated Service Manager, we actually oversee these for the region, as I mentioned earlier, and that there is a cost-sharing agreement that we've set up with the United Counties to be able to deliver this service for our area. Some of the ways that we jointly manage the work together is through our Joint Liaison Committee, which has elected representatives from both the city and the United Counties, which is also supported by the senior staff team from Shared Services, which would also include services like paramedic services as well. But this evening, I'm here to give you an update on Housing Services Division and to talk about housing in our community. And what you can see from this slide is that there's actually a wide range of programs and services that the City of Cornwall offers under the Housing Services Division, and I will spend some time covering those this evening. I think it's important to discuss the history of the devolution of social housing in the province of Ontario. In June 1995, the Ontario government announced that it was getting out of the business of housing. And what had actually happened was any sort of federal housing or provincial housing was downloaded to the municipalities, and the service manager has taken this on since essentially 1996. In 2000, as communities looked at how they would deliver community housing in their areas, there were a variety of options to be done. You could have the service delivered in-house or delivered by an arm's length local housing corporation or done by the community service or not-for-profit sector. And at the time, Cornwall had decided to strike a local housing corporation known as Cornwall and Area Housing Corporation. As of last January, that housing corporation has actually now been amalgamated into the City of Cornwall. So the City of Cornwall directly provides about 1,231 units of housing to the community and administers 323 rent geared to income rent supplement units, as well as our role as service manager. So we've been talking more and more about the housing continuum and discussing where the service manager is choosing to focus its efforts and its work. And essentially the way the housing continuum works is it's a spectrum. So it starts with what we would call emergency shelter provision. So this is where there would be supports available for people who are homeless. So literally think of emergency shelter, short-term housing, emergency stay kind of work, all the way through to private home ownership or market rentals. Where the service manager is choosing to focus its efforts is in the middle, which is in the area of developing affordable housing or more community housing, essentially with the goal of providing long-term solutions to the housing needs within our community. Now, that being said, we do spend a little bit of time working in the emergency shelter area. So we do have a program called the Homelessness Prevention Program, which does support individuals who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. Some of our important work in that area is the by name list, which you're going to probably start hearing more and more about over the next few months. And in terms of home ownership, we do have a down payment relationship set up with Habitat for Humanity, who I know was just speaking before I came in. So what we do is we do provide a down payment for eligible families to be able to purchase a Habitat home. And we're able to do about 1 to 2 families in a year. So just to give you a bit of sense of the state of housing in Cornwall and SCNG right now, there's different ways you can measure affordability. There's things called shelter cost to income, and that's really where you get into rent geared to income, and that's the real true measure of affordability. And Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation basically states that no one should be paying more than 30% of their income to housing. And that includes all the cost of housing, not just a mortgage payment, but utilities and any kind of cost that go into maintaining that home. And I'm sure as soon as I say 30%, we can all strongly think about lots of folks who we know are paying more than 30%. The other measure that you can use is something called average market rent, or alternative average market rent. This is also set by CMHC, and what they do is they scan a community and they say, looking at the rents that are available within the private market, roughly this is what an average rent should cost a family or an individual. So the real cost of measurability that we like to look at is the shelter to cost, and trying to do as much as we can to keep as many people in that 30% ratio. Other things you can see, we like to talk about stats looking at household income. So for example, a one-person household making it around $25,000, which is usually an average what we see if they're a low-income wage earner. Their affordable rent, as defined by that 30% threshold, is $613 a month, and then the average market rent could be as high as $1,000. So you can see the two right there, measures of affordability and what might work or not work. And what we do know is that about 50% of the renters in our area are in what is called core housing need, and core housing need is actually how many folks are paying more than that 30% threshold to their landlord, and you can see that we're looking at least 50% of renters in our community are falling into that core housing need area. Other reasons why we're really kind of trying to strategize around creating long-term affordable housing for our communities is the cost, that kind of group of data you see right in the middle. So to provide an emergency shelter bed costs by bed roughly on average $1,900 a month. You can see a provincial jail bed costs $4,300 a month. A hospital stay is $10,000 a month. And if you look at community housing, it's $200 a month. So what we know is if we can build more of this housing that's truly affordable or measured by rent geared to income, that what it's going to actually start to do is stabilize and make better results for actually a lower investment. It has a better ROI than other kind of provision of housing services. So our other kind of key focus in this area is something called Housing First. And the idea of Housing First is that it's a philosophy. So traditionally we think of when we have to work with people in homelessness, we think, hey, the best way to support this individual is to provide them addiction and mental health treatment, and then let's move them into shelter. And what Housing First has shown us through research and projects like Chez Soi out of Quebec is that actually if we house someone and get them stable, they respond much better to other interventions and will go on to have better success. So it's this whole idea, if we can house folks and give them a safe place to stay, there's a lot more we can do for them. So again, why we're focused in kind of that middle area of the housing continuum. Again, I won't spend a lot of time here, but again, this lets you know the scope of what the Housing Services Division offers. And as I said, the Cornwall and Area Housing Corporation was recently amalgamated in. So that's that provision of community housing. And on the other half of our work is the housing program end. And housing programs is primarily focused on delivering provincially mandated programs to the community. Again, this slide just essentially shows the breakout of our housing portfolio, which is geared to seniors, and how many units are offered in the City of Cornwall area. And then the next slide here, which will be of interest, is how many units we're offering in the county. So currently, right now, you can see there's close to 400 units of housing we do offer in the United Counties of SD&G. And if you look, we can see in Morrisburg, there's roughly 72. You can see there's probably other housing units that fall within your community areas as well. So we really are focused on how do we offer this support beyond just the City of Cornwall boundary. So I'm sure folks might be familiar with the centralized wait list. The centralized wait list is basically where someone has to apply to be able to be eligible for rent geared to income housing. Rent geared to income housing is very legislated, and you can only have very limited priorities in terms of how you move people off that list and into housing. And there's really only one priority population at this time we're working with, is what's called a SPP individual, which is someone who's experienced domestic violence or human trafficking. They get priority placement due to safety reasons. Other programs that we oversee, so there's our OFI, and as you can tell, there's lots of acronyms in housing. So that's our Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative, and then there's another program we administer called COCHI, which is the Canada-Ontario Community Housing Initiative. So Ontario Priorities, funded by the province. COCHI is done as a partnership between the federal government and the provincial governments. And the easy way to think about this is the P means programs. So this is where you're going to see things like rent supplements or programmatic work we're doing with clients. And when you hear C, think capital. So this is where we're able to do capital improvements for housing providers that were legislated to support under the Housing Services Act. And again, Ontario Renovates is one of our programs where an individual is able to do renovations to their home through a grant, with the whole idea of keeping the individual housed in their home that they have, that they can again retain that asset. So we have a variety of rent supplements, again, just to make it interesting and clear as for everyone, clear as mud, as they would say. One of our rent supplements is actually what's called a portable housing benefit. The difference between the program called COB, which is Canada Ontario Housing Benefit, is that it's actually tied to the person. So if a person's eligible for this, they can move out of the community. When they move into a new community, that benefit stays with them. And it's usually, again, based on income criteria and things of that nature. Whereas a rent supplement is tied to a unit. So that's usually created in partnership with a landlord, and what it means is that that rent is able to be subsidized through an agreement with a private market landlord. One of the programs I did quickly mention was our housing, it's actually called HPP, Homelessness Prevention Program. It offers a wide variety of supports, again, to people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. So we provide 332 domiciliary beds in the community. So that's for individuals who are homeless, and they get support with meals, shelter, life skill supports. Then there's our crisis bed program, which really is what it says. You're in a crisis, you're homeless, and you have nowhere to go. We can put you up in a motel for 5 days. And then where we really try to, again, focus is in our homelessness prevention work. So this might be where someone, for whatever reason, has gotten themselves into a utility arrear or a problem with their landlord in terms of rent payment. We're able to provide some financial support in that area as well. Our by name list initiative, again, is something you're going to be hearing more about in the coming months. The province has mandated the service managers to have their by name list fully implemented by April 1st of 2023. And what this list does, it's a coordinated response system to working with people who are homeless. So we literally go out, we look for folks who are struggling, who are homeless, we get them registered on the list, we assess their acuity, so like essentially how deep and chronic is their homelessness, and then our goal is to start matching them with housing providers within the community. And that's the part we have to have implemented by April 1st. So our goal really is to look at how do we start moving people off this list. I think one of the advantages to Cornwall is right now our homeless numbers, while they're there, are low, and we probably actually could work together as a community to help to really create some resolution to this issue. The goal is to get to something called functional zero. And functional zero basically means that folks aren't in homelessness for any extended period of time, that the system's able to respond really quickly and get them housed. Other pieces of work that we do, and we were here to talk about this at County Council in the summer, is we are mandated to follow a 10-year homelessness or housing and homelessness plan, and that's mandated by the province. So we have basically goals and objectives we set, and it is again for the City of Cornwall and the United Counties, where we look at, okay, what are our objectives and our priorities for housing, and how do we start to move forward on those. Another big piece of work we have coming up in the next few months is our housing revitalization plan. So in 2022, we did an in-depth study of our communities to identify how many units of housing did we need to really address the need, what folks needed to be housed, what were the numbers looking like, and the types of units. And at the time, we were told we needed 740 units of housing across the region, and that roughly 60% of those needed to be in the county. So at the time, the focus was we need to build outside of the City of Cornwall to start to alleviate the need. And at this point, we're looking to get that data updated, because post-COVID, we can already start to see it a little bit on the centralized wait list. And just anecdotally, we know that housing is becoming more and more of a crisis for individuals in our community. So we want to bring someone back in to get that plan updated so that we can be responding with what is needed in our communities. And I think this will be most exciting for this council. We have 3 builds happening. One, actively underway, probably 60% complete at this point. One that we're going to probably be breaking ground on, hopefully, in the next coming months. And one in Morrisburg, just down the road here, that's going to get started. So there's our very first county build. Our goal with Morrisburg is we are building on our Morris Glen site that we already own, and we're starting with 17 2-bedroom units. But the goal is, again, to build on that in phases and to add more units in the future, because that land can actually hold more than just the 17. And also some very exciting work is we have created the Mayor's Task Force Housing Report. So the City of Cornwall brought together individuals from the community and said, okay, again, like, what does our community need in terms of housing? There's been 3 housing plans that have been delivered to our townships. And essentially, all of those led to something called the A Home Collaborative. And the Home Collaborative, we're really proud of. We just had a meeting recently, and Councillor Ward and your CIO both sit on that. It's innovative. We, at this point, think we are the only community that's doing this. So what we have is a coordinated body of planners, economic development, CAO, City of Cornwall's housing services staff, all coming together to plan strategically around housing and homelessness. And again, we're not aware of any other multi-level tier government that's doing this. So again, I think that's just something we really should be proud of in our area, that we're really trying to work together. Our first piece of work was to identify vacant land in the different regions. So it's quite possible you might see myself and Melissa back to talk about land, because what we've discovered is if we don't protect land for housing at this point, it starts to disappear. So again, we've built a list, it's tiered, and we're going to start to come together to look at what our approach is going to be. And then, as I said, you may see me back again. And thank you again for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. Excellent. Couple comments just for myself to start. I did get to tour the site in Cornwall with Minister Clark when we made the announcement on the update to the Morris Glen site. So very impressive site, and getting close, and you're going to have office space in that as well to be available to the residents and the folks that need that. Very exciting too that they've built the site that can be self-sufficient with the heat pumps, and then the actually installation of in the future solar panels on the roof, so wired in with the brackets ready to go if you choose to make those purchases. So a really neat build that you've done there. So we're anxious and we're excited about the announcement, and when we start to see our unit expand here in Morrisburg for the residents of South Dundas. So
Great.
That's excellent. So thank you for that. Any questions, comments from the team? Councillor Smith.
Quick question. You mentioned about getting your wait list down to functional zero. What does that mean?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So that's the by name list. So I'll spend a bit of time just explaining it a bit more. So what we did was we did a point in time count in the summer where we actually go out and we try to find people who are homeless so we can know a bit more about them, like essentially why that's happening, who they are, and to get to know them by name so that we don't lose track of them and where they're at. That list right now sits at around 20 people that we can identify are actually homeless. It started at 77, now we're down to 20. It's that 20 group we want to move to functional zero. And what functional zero means is that they're housed, hopefully staying in that housing, and then what it means is the system's responding so well to homelessness that if anybody ends up being homeless, it's not for an extended period of time. There's been a few communities in Canada that have been able to do it. So Medicine Hat was one, and there are some others now in the province of Ontario, but essentially you can never have a true zero when it comes to homelessness. It's just because of the pressures, right, on individuals and the affordability crisis in housing.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay.
Great.
Not seeing any others, so thank you very much. We've had quite a few delegations over our first 3 months on council
Learning
and
lots.
about housing. So we appreciate all the time spent. A lot of information to take in, and I know Deputy Mayor and I are at the county meetings too, so we're getting this information all the time as well. So thank you for the information,
Excellent.
and we'll continue to work with you and work with the shared services event. And if there's anything this council can do, please let us know.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you,
Thank you.
Council.
Okay, we'll move into agenda item 7. We'll start with 7A, cost of living and budget review. We have acting treasurer Lachlan McDonald here.
All right, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. You may recall we kind of started this conversation. I believe it was Deputy Mayor Broad had asked that we come back with a report for council to discuss in a fulsome manner. So this is that report. You can see in the recommendation that we're recommending 5.2%, which we had talked about earlier, and then directing staff to review, I guess, compensation model for future years. It also times well with the review, I forget the name of the compensation review, thank you. So if you look on your report, I'll just go through it quickly here. Page 41, at the bottom you do see a few methods that local municipalities use. 2% per year is one, match their union. COLA bound by 1 to 3% was done at North Dundas and is being incorporated recently, and then COLA with no bounds. We could also review any kind of sort of bounds, and that's what is below, like based on a 3-year CPI average. Tiered compensation where levels 5 and above are bound and levels 1 to 4 are not. We can apply COLA to the lowest and median amount and then use that as a gross number. Anyhow, there's many ways that we could do this, and this is probably more in front of council for a further discussion because we could get lost here in compensation models. And I did provide on page 43, there's 3 charts, and then on page 44, 3 charts as well, kind of giving a visual to where you are or how much the increases have happened over the last 3 years. The reason you see South Dundas slightly lagging your local municipal comparators is the 0.7 that was applied in 2022 when COLA was closer to 3-point-some%. I forget exactly which one it was used here. However, it's up front for council to discuss, and we'll gladly do what you decide. You see our recommendation, but it's per council's purview.
Thank you, Treasurer McDonald. I'll just open the floor by saying thanks for the information. I think some of the charting is a help for us. And I think as we've prepare for our budget on Friday, this is a key component, A, to the budget, and then B, longer term when it comes to what we do with the bylaw year on year, and as well as implementing, reviewing the compensation review, which we've entered. So open the floor for the councillors to make comments, ask questions of our treasurer, and have a feeling for what our final decision may be, A, in the interim, and then budget, and then future bylaws or permanent bylaws, whatever we may feel. So open the floor up. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. To be honest with you, I was hoping tonight was going to be the night that we could get right in depth with these discussions and come up with an option for two reasons: for fairness of staff, so they know moving forward what they're going to be receiving in the future for the COLA rate, and also keeping in mind the budget. But I've read your report. It's a report that's in front of us. I still am in favor of resolving what the COLA should be. However, I have thought about this a little bit further, and I've had some individual discussions with the CAO and with Mr. Mayor Jason Broad, and do recognize that we do have a compensation review that's underway, and this is somewhat tied to the comp review. I think it's a process that we have to respect. I will say, though, that when the comp review gets completed, I personally will still be in favor of a min to max ratio. I would say, though, the min would be 1% and my max would be 4%. I think 4% is above the norm 3%. I think it's fair. And I do think that we should apply a rate this year, and I would propose, to be honest with you, of applying a 4% increase to the COLA for this year until such time as the comp review gets completed. I think 4% is still fair. Yes, I recognize it's not the 5.2. I recognize it's not the 6% that's been published, but I do think 4% is still fair for our staff. So with that is something that I would propose for now, and let's get through the budget and let's get through the comp review, and then we can set a formula that's going to be set in stone at least for the next 3 years of our term in council. So that's what I would propose, is a 4% increase at this time.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just looking at the chart for information, an increase of 4% is $134,871, a 1.75 taxation rate, which would be obviously slightly lower than the 5.2 that we have in front of us.
If
Treasurer?
may, and then thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, that difference from 5.2 to 4%, because 5.2 is in the budget presently as you've received it, so that would be $41,000 less if 4% was what council decided upon. And we can always change the amendment friendly-wise, just strike through whatever number that is. So that's fairly simple if I understand the clerical situation. So please carry on with your conversation. I just wanted to let you know that 5.2% was included in the budget.
Comments, councillors? Councillor Wood?
For Mr. McDonald, the South Stormont amount is not illustrated. Did we not receive data from them, or are they based on their union rate?
We did not receive direct data, but in talking to a former employee who currently works for us, their percentage would be closer to 11 point some percent. So they'd be on that higher bounds. They'd actually be higher than North Stormont. But that came after I had produced this report.
Okay, thank you. So to continue through you, Mayor, I'm a little bit different than the Deputy Mayor. And the reason for that is looking at these charts is illustrative of the situation. We clearly have an issue retaining staff, and I think this chart speaks to that. We are the bottom, no matter what percent increase we're giving them. I look at the increase that is the 5.2%, and at least we get in the middle. I'm not asking council to be the number one or the top provider, but I do think we need to consider what being at the bottom is telling our staff. I agree with Deputy Mayor St. Pierre on his looking at some sort of min-max ratio. I do agree with that. The one thing I will note is that if other municipalities and SDNG are following a different model than us, we could fall behind or get far ahead. It would be nice if we could all, at the United Counties level, follow the same ratio. I don't know what kind of meeting that would be, but I know everyone wants to be competitive. So I personally feel that the 5.2 is still low, but it puts us in the middle of the pack of the other townships. I think staff have been receiving 0.7 for too long. That's my opinion. So because I've seen the budget, I agree with the 5.2%, but I do agree with Deputy Mayor that we need to develop some sort of rate moving forward, because I would prefer not to discuss CPI increases every year. I think CPI is CPI. If we decide on a min-max ratio instead of CPI, then that's also something I would be in favor of. And I think the compensation review, to Deputy Mayor St. Pierre's point, is also an important part of this, right? So I wish we had that information in front of us with this. Unfortunately, we don't, but we will eventually. But I'm in favor of the 5.2 as it stands.
Councillor Vino?
Echo Councillor Ward's points. I believe 0.7% for the past 2 years, that there's an inevitable adjustment that needs to be made because we were lacking for a couple of years, I believe. It was 0.7 for 2 years, and where did I just see that? And so it should have been closer to 3.5. Is that how I read that correctly last year?
That would be correct, Councillor.
So that's where we're starting to fall behind a little bit over the last couple of years. So I believe there's an adjustment needs to be made. I agree that it's very difficult, or it's tough timing. We're in the midst of a comp review, and that would be great information to have for this. But being we're not there, I would be in agreement with the 5.2 just because it's currently in the budget and it looks like it fits. And I also agree with Deputy St. Pierre on we need to have a structure for this. We need to not do this every year, and in fairness with the staff, like you've mentioned. So, yep, that's my stance on that one.
Councillor Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like everybody else, I wish I had the comp review in front of me, and we don't, unfortunately. This year is almost a one-off where the CPI is so much, and most years it's 2, maybe it's 3.5, maybe it's 0.5, and so in most years the way that we're doing it is maybe not that big of a deal, but this year it is. So we're definitely behind. Now keep in mind too, a lot of people maybe work in private sector aren't getting a 5.2% raise this year, myself included. But at the end of the day, we have to retain staff and we have to be competitive. And so for this year, I would be in favor of something around 5%. But moving forward, I think I agree with the Deputy Mayor of setting a min-max or some way of going on the 3-year rolling average. I think that's how the counties decided they were going to do it. Did they not? I think that's correct.
The counties decided the 1 to 3.
Was it 1 to 3? I thought
it was. Yes. The recommendation was the average, and it was changed in the meeting to.
Oh, it was changed. It whacked to 1 to 3. Okay. Yes. Myself, I kind of like the one with like the 3-year rolling average. That was just so it wasn't so much of a hit at once. It was, you could phase in an increase, but either way, we need to try and set it up that we don't end up with another 5% increase, nor do we end up with a 0.25 or a 0.7 again or something like that. So we can just try to even it out year after year after year. So that's my thought. So for right now, 5.2 is okay with me.
Deputy Mayor, any comments? Yes.
Yes, sure.
Yes.
So thank you, and I appreciate you half supporting me. But we are team council, Team South Dundas, so, and that's fair enough. That's why we're having these debates. I would just like to take a few minutes to point out a few things. So when I was at the Roma conference, I purposely went to a seminar about staff retention, and the CAO from South Stormont was one of the panelists. And surprisingly enough, contrary to what we think, salary is not the number one reason why people stay at jobs. It's work-life, life balance, and culture. So salary is not the number one, but I do agree respectively, I believe staff did not receive the proper increases that they should have in the last year or the year before. I 100% agree with that. I guess in my perspective, we are doing this comp review, and this could backfire a little bit if we give a 5.2% increase to certain staff, and then we find out, oops, they're actually making too much money based on the comp review. So that's where I was kind of thinking, and I apologize that I didn't really express that clearly. That's where I was thinking, let's start with the 4%, let's get the comp review, and then whatever adjustments we need to make afterwards, we make it based on the comp review. So I apologize if that didn't kind of get spelled out correctly enough. So I do think the 4% is still a healthy increase, but I also respect the fact that they didn't get a very good increase last year. So whatever the council as a whole decision is, I respect that and will respect that. And I do respect staff. I think they do deserve a good increase. My perspective, I thought 4% at this time was good. I think we do have to recognize that we've got a very tight budget that we're looking at. And I appreciate everybody's probably haven't had the opportunity to go through that yet. The bad word of inflation I don't believe is going to be a one-off. I think it's going to be a couple years. And the worst thing is we're going to get into a recession. If we're not into it now, we are going to get into a recession. Now, I know that doesn't help with staff wages, but as a whole for the municipality, we got to look, and the report says this, we got to be fair and balanced with the needs of the municipality, the needs of our staff, and really our needs as a council as well. So I will respect if it's 5.2, I respect that. I just want to make sure everybody understood that 4% was more of a step in the process. And I still think that's the correct step, but I respect whatever direction this council goes.
Councillor Ward?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I guess this question is more for the CAO, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So through you, Mayor, to the CAO, the compensation review, when it looks at the appropriate wages for individual positions, to the Deputy Mayor's point, and I appreciate that and I understand what you're getting at now, so thank you for clarifying. If we were to increase by 5.2%, that would be included in the compensation review at that time. So they would understand that those wages are going up by 5.2%, and that would be considered when it comes back to council to decide.
So through you, Mayor Broad, to Councillor Ward. So yeah, so what we've done right now is there is about 15 comparable municipalities that we've sent out a survey to. Once we get that information, it will be compiled using our current salary grid. If council chooses whether it's 4% or 5.2, they'll get an updated salary grid and they'll use those comparisons. It will come back to council in a chart. So council can decide whether they want to be the 50th percentile, do you want to be the 75th, do you want to be at the top, kind of where you want to put the salary grid or the new pay grid where you go forward. So certainly this will all impact where we are and how we measure to our competitors.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Councillor Vino?
Just to Deputy Mayor St. Pierre's point, I do agree that it could backfire a little bit in that regard, but I also think that, or I shouldn't say I think, I hope that staff understands that while the comp review could be beneficial to their position, it can also be detrimental. And while we're doing this to make sure that everybody's getting paid equally, it may not necessarily work out in certain individuals' favors either. So, if we do a 5.2 increase and it ends up coming to light that they're getting paid too much anyways, well, the next year they may not get that or whatever. As long as they understand that,
Yes.
that the goal isn't just it's not always going to be positive.
In the comp review, when we get the review, there will be strategies on how to get where we need to get to. Because the Deputy Mayor's point, the base salary isn't the end all and be all. Total compensation is important. Attitude and culture is important. travel time to work, residency, a lot of things are included in that. I would say, salary is important, and if that starts the negative thoughts, those other thoughts enter in as well. So looking at where we've been, I think we've been behind. I think the comp review will dictate that when we see it, but I'm open to the will of the council. Councillor Smith?
All right. Mr. Mayor, just had one question. Shannon, when could we expect the results from the comp review to be in?
Through you, Mayor Broad, to Councillor Smith. They are expecting it first to mid of March that we'll have a report back to council.
Okay. Okay, and something else, now this would be, Mr. Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor, would you be proposing that we do a 4% at budget time, and then after the comp review, if we need to do more after that? Is that what you would be proposing?
Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mayor Broad. I think once you get the comp review, that's all going to come out in the wash in terms of what their salaries will be anyways. So no, I wasn't proposing it needed to be adjusted. I was just proposing that 4% would be a good increase now. Let's see where the comp review lands, and then things would be adjusted accordingly.
To add on to the comp review, we will get the report. We will choose where we want to be in the chart, and then we would create a plan to get there.
Okay.
So we wouldn't necessarily be giving out raises because that impacts this year's budget, next year's budget at whole heart. But we would have a plan to get us into the right area for the job matches.
Okay.
Yep. Councillor Vino?
Through you to Lachlan. So it's 5.2% is in the current budget, like in our budget binders.
That's correct.
If we wanted to throw a 4% scenario in there, is that a difficult task?
Well, to met it out, not a little bit, but we do have good spreadsheets. On the aggregate, $41,000 is what you'd be looking at.
On the aggregate, yeah. Okay, yeah. I guess I could have done that math too. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
CEO?
Just the one thing I will probably comment to Councillor Ward, it's something I will bring up at our CEO's meeting, because it would be nice to have that conversation if it's a min or max, if we can have that replicated throughout SD&G, because it creates that fairness across the board. So it's certainly something I'll look at bringing forward, and if we can hopefully, get to that point where we're all kind of doing the same thing, then we're not competing against one another, we're working together in tandem. So I'll certainly bring it up and report back to council.
Having some standardization in SD&G would be helpful, as we sit on the county board, so as having that as standard. And then when we do the comp review, it would be long-serving, because we would know where other townships, municipalities move towards. So to Deputy Mayor's point, it's not all about the pay, but at least we would know where everybody's at based on the annuals increases. Yep. So we do have a recommendation, and I'll read the motion, and if we have a motion and it passes, then we would execute on that. So unless there's any other questions or comments. So the motion is that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept the report, FS 2013-01, and approve the 5.2% cost of living adjustment increase based on the 2021 CPI for the 2023 budget, and direct staff to return with options for council for deliberation following the compensation review currently underway. Do I have a mover of the motion? Councillor Ward. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vino. All in favor of the motion? Oppose the motion? Carried? Thank you very much. Appreciate the hard work the staff have put in on this topic. It's been over several meetings. I appreciate council's input and thoughts, and a great first discussion in this area, and excellent comments and thoughts by everybody, respected conversations, and I thank you for that. Okay, moving to 7B, ratification of terms of reference, Economic Development Committee and the South Dundas Waterfront Committee. So in our last meeting, we had brought those forward as they were joining. We had some feedback on reducing the number of committee members and then aligning to a Iroquois Waterfront Committee, a South Dundas Waterfront Committee, and then an overarching committee that would meet with the group, some of the members of that group to make sure that we were aligned and kept things moving in the same direction at two waterfronts. So in our packages, we have the updated terms of reference on those from the feedback from last time. Is there any comments or questions on the specifics of those terms? These terms are our documents, and as we get started into the meetings and we see something we want to add or delete, we can come back and make those adjustments as we all get familiar with committees of council, as they are all new to us. So I do have a motion that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas approve the following terms of reference: the Economic Community Development Committee and the South Dundas Waterfront Committee. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. 7C, Morrisburg Arena alcohol sales. So we have Director of Rec Parks Facilities, David Jansen, here to review the documentation and the proposal. Mr. Jansen.
Good evening, Council. So in front of you is a report as Deputy Mayor brought forward at the last meeting to review alcohol sales and licensing of the Morrisburg Arena. I did provide a recommendation from staff there, similar to Mr. McDonald, though I'm certainly open to either way on this one. So I sort of wrote the report in terms of the pros and cons. Staff are open to whatever direction council wants to go here. Obviously, there's the pros that it's good for the growth of hockey in South Dundas, and similar arenas are doing it. There's the cons on the risk management side. We are opening ourselves up to a little bit more liability. It will be a little bit more work for staff and items like that. So I put that in the report for you guys to sort of hem and haw about and see the pros and cons. I also included a list of, if we did go forward with it, kind of staff's expectations, one within the alcohol policy, within the liquor control board, sort of what we'd be looking for from the junior Cs going forward. So that's all there for you guys to review. But like I said, staff are open to going forward, or the reasons to not go forward. They're both there. So, but I wrote the recommendation there so you guys could vote whichever way you guys see. I'll do my best to answer your questions for you guys. I will say I am not a liquor license expert, but I'll do my best.
Thank you for the report, and thank you for following our policy. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we probably have an opportunity to look at a few of the policy line items as well, as they may be exceeding what the liquor laws are of Ontario, which is fine. We'll get to that point at some point. I thank you for bringing it back, Deputy Mayor, at the last meeting. The Junior C Hockey Club, Morrisburg Lions, have been a good partner through our 2B weekend and have shown some excellent results in that area. So I think this is a good opportunity to potentially make a change, but open it up to the councillors if they have any questions or concerns. Deputy Mayor?
Oh, thank you. Through you, Mayor Broad. Just a couple quick clarifications, and you may or may not know the answer, David. I apologize. I should have maybe emailed this to you. A couple of things, just talking about the insurance increases. You've said that, the report states that potentially we may increase the hourly rate to offset costs for staffing and insurances. Have we reached out to the insurance companies to find out if there is indeed an increase to our insurance rate?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, they didn't provide it in the letter from the insurer. They said that if we move forward, they'd review, and our policy is very large, so it would sort of encompass into a lot of our policy. So it might be difficult for them to quantify as well, but I suspect that there would be a slight rate increase to our overall policy.
Okay.
But they didn't quantify it for us.
Okay, thank you. So we won't recognize that until
if we move forward, then yeah.
Okay. And the other thing, just on the additional staff for cleaning, again, maybe I'm being a little naive, but I just can't recognize why there'd be additional cleaning just by people having a drink, like versus if it's buying more off the cafeteria or bringing in their own Tim Hortons coffee or whatnot. So I'm just having struggled a little bit understanding why there would be additional staff required.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, it's obviously another thing that's difficult to quantify until we see it, but I suspect right now you see a lot of pop and stuff in the stands, and most of that has lids and doesn't get spilled. So after a junior C game on a Saturday night when we're on our time crunch, you might see them just sweep the stands and wait until Monday to mop, depends on the level of mess, whereas I suspect if we increase the amount of liquids going into the stands, the odds that we have to mop the stands increase and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. And just one
Yes,
more
Deputy Mayor,
through
continue, yes.
through you, Mayor Brown. I didn't read it because I recall developing policy 9-1 my term of council in 2017, so I didn't read it verbatim, but I'm just wondering, our insurance broker is recommending a 5 million liability. The policy is 2 million. Looks like we may have to adjust that policy, correct?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that the 2 to 5 is slowly becoming industry standard in the insurance world.
Okay.
So that's just our policy might be lagging behind a little bit on the industry standards.
Okay, so if I could just close
Can I
out
just
with-
answer, sorry.
Absolutely,
Just
sir.
on the insurance piece, I do know through BFL, who Minor Hockey Canada, it's a 5 million liability is what they provide today, so it does meet that 5 million requirement. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. And just through you, just the final, I guess my only comment would be, and yes, I'm in support of moving forward with supporting a liquor license. The only thing I would suggest is until we really recognize that there's additional cost for the municipality, I would recommend just leaving the rates as is for this year, 2023. Or this season, I shouldn't say all year, but the remainder of the season. Let's see what the outcome is, and then if we have to do some adjustments to the rates, then we can revisit that at that time. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Smith?
But I want to make sure that I just understand, so we're going to be licensing the whole arena now. Where's the alcohol going to be served from?
So I'll let, so that to be determined with director and the Junior C Hockey Club, which is the best fit, what meets all the requirements of the policy. So unless you have a specific spot today that you figured that out, director?
No, I am in the same boat as you,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I was just curious if it was going to be in the canteen or if it was allowed to be in the canteen, if it had to be separate. I was just.
It could be any of those. It will be partly up to how the negotiations go with the Lions Club, and then with applying for their liquor license, what the requirements are of the liquor license. We also have places in the arena where it can't be because of compressors and exits and all those type of things. So the director would find the proper place and make sure it fits. And the liquor licensing board would probably have a lot to say about that, how that works too. Yeah. Councilor Vino?
So one thing in there, so is it per our policy that none of their alcohol that's going to be available to be sold will be able to be stored on municipal premises? Did I read that correctly in there?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I wrote that in there. There is no additional storage space in the Mooresburg Arena.
Okay.
Like, every user group in the Mooresburg Arena wants more storage space. I don't have the ability to give it, and I'm not going to give it for this either. So
Yeah.
it's just keeping it fair for every user group.
Okay, so that was more of a heads up to us and to the club that
Yes.
if we go through with this, you got to figure out where you're going to store your stuff.
Yeah, the club's very aware. They have their little closet already, and it's already overflowing. Every group in the arena struggles with it.
Okay,
So
all right.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, sorry, and just one final one through you, Mayor Broad. I was just looking through my notes. So it does say in here the requirements of the Junior C for sales, and the very first one is would require written approval from the Mooresburg Lions, whose agreement allows for exclusive sales of food and drink. Can you kindly provide us with that agreement so we can see what that actually says in there at some point in time, please? And is it a true comparison to what the cafeteria is offering to what the Junior C's are offering? Because they're not both selling alcohol. people may want to fry with their alcohol beverage. It may be a benefit to them, but if you could kindly at some point in time pass on that agreement, it would just be a benefit, because I know there's always been a question around, or sometimes I've always questioned what the agreement is between the Morrisburg Lions use of the cafeteria versus the arena.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith?
There's one other thing that I did read in there was under the alcohol policy. Municipality reserves the right to have 2 police officers for the duration of the event. I would recommend that if this goes through, that maybe for the first couple of events, if we could maybe have some OPP officers there just kind of wandering around just to kind of set the tone, that would be a recommendation from me. I don't know what everybody else thinks about that, but just a thought.
We could reach out to our partner at the OPP and ask them what they would suggest. If we were to pay OPP, I'm sure that would be cost ineffective to doing the event. But otherwise, I would say we could investigate that. If that's
Okay.
It might be good to, sorry.
Councillor Vino?
It might be good just to even reach out to, I guess it would be Jim, who was just
Yes.
here, and see what his experience has been with the other municipalities that are doing this, and see if he thinks that it's warranted or one way or the other. But it might be just good to see what he's hearing from the other municipalities that are doing this.
Director?
So, to council, I will say that I brought this up in the SDNG rec meeting to see how everybody else was doing it, and the general consensus is, it's risky. Everybody does it a slightly different way, but that's because everybody's arena is different. Maxville, it's in a separate hall. Some of them, they have it upstairs. Some of them have the third-party caterer. I think that's Cornwall and South Stormont use a third party coming in and doing the catering. So they're all a little different in that sense. So, but I would say the OPP look out there. I'd sort of push that back onto the junior Cs. If you're hosting a dance or anything like that, you're able to get the OPP to come to your event. It just has a cost. So.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? So I do have a motion that council approve the exemption to policy 9-1 as outlined in section 16 to allow for the Morrisburg Arena to be an eligible facility for the purpose of an application by the Morrisburg Junior Hockey Team to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario for the purpose of seeking a liquor license at the facility. Have a motioner? Councillor Ward, seconder. Councillor or Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Director. Okay, I guess we'll stick with Mr. Jansen. Request for waived or reduced arena fees under action request 7D. Director?
Yeah, so staff had the school, St. Cecilia, St. Mary's, reach out here looking for some waived fees or reduced fees here in the Morrisburg Arena. As you can see within the report, staff recommend not reducing the fees and sticking to the bylaw, as our bylaw is already more generous than quite a few other bylaws, and it sort of sets a precedent for all other school groups that we'd be having 13, 14 hours of ice, or we'd be changing our price for just them, and then all of a sudden you have another group that wants to come in and we'd have to change the price for them. So.
Could you remind us, I know we reviewed it last week at the fees section, but can you remind us what a school group gets today?
Yeah, so a school group gets 2 hours for free, and then they get a rate of $85 an hour. So I have some comparisons. North Glengarry and South Stormont both have a school rate as well. South Stormont is $100 an hour, North Glengarry is $90 an hour, and they don't include the free hours. So we're already below our competitors, in quotations I'll say there, but so.
Questions, comments? Councilor Vino?
That it's a tough one for me because while I don't like throwing away money, I have a soft spot for youth, especially in today's society, getting out and being active, because I feel like that's not being done enough. I know whenever I went to school at St. Mary's, actually, we got out there a couple times, and it used to be a big thing for me when I was a kid. Like, it was extremely fun, and I see that on their schedule they're going to have a teacher versus student game, which I think is a great thing. You know, I think if it was up to me, the schools, if they were a South Dundas school, they would get free use of the arena off hours all the time. But that's just me, just because I'm a big proponent of the youth being able to get out and be active instead of being on tablets and computers and stuff. But I also agree with the setting the precedent, because I mean, then you get into a whole nother thing where you have to dictate, okay, well, is it just people in South Dundas get that rate, or is it other groups from other places, and it'll open up a whole nother can of worms. So I don't know, I really would like to be able to do something for the school, but I just don't know what the rest of the council feels.
Now, comment from myself, obviously, weather and the dates when they want to have events. We do have an outdoor arena rink with volunteers that are working hard to keep that going, and that is always an option for the school to use. And maybe if, I know we don't have a rental program for the outdoor rink, but on a school day afternoon, I'm pretty sure it would be pretty quiet. So maybe that is also an option we should promote, and promoting free play in that event could always be an option for them. Has that ever been mentioned or thought about? Have they mentioned that at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that we're okay. Any other comments? Okay, so the recommendation is the motion that council approve option 1, no changes to the fees as indicated in the report, PF 2023-2. If someone move the motion. Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Director. Thank you very much. Okay, under consent agenda, several items that's in our agenda package. To receive and file an update on the future Arena Steps project, the Voyant Alert update, the vacancy tax rebate program, building statistics as of December 31st, building statistics year to date, South Nation Conservation Authority memo on submitting online concerns, Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Economical Development Program, Williamsburg Firefighters glove purchase, and Morrisburg Fire Association equipment purchase. Any comments or questions on those reports? I have a motion that all the items under general consent section of the agenda be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Wiener. All in favor? Carried. On a side note, I'd like to thank the firefighters that have used their fundraising funds to purchase some of those equipment. So I appreciate the firefighters that do that in their volunteer time to raise some money to help with some of their equipment needs. So muchly appreciated. So under boards and committees, number 10A, SDG County Update. So we had a county council meeting on January 16th that Deputy Mayor St. Pierre and I attended. There were several delegations. We had an excellent delegation from the Ronald McDonald House with their addition of expanding the house in Ottawa at their location. And these are for residents that live more than 80 kilometers away from the hospital that can take advantage of this. So it definitely affects some of our residents and or residents in SDNG. They have a quite aggressive budget to get this building done. They have a shortfall right now of $1.2 million that they're looking to close, and they've asked the counties to contribute $50,000 over the next 4 years. So that number will come up in our budget meetings for deliberation, but that was the ask on that one. Eastern Ontario Food Network was also there, and they're presented all of their activities that they use. It's been that network is in Prescott Russell very active and more in SDNG now, and they were just looking for their annual contribution of $25,000, which will come up at our budget as well. We had housing services, so we have seen the housing document several times. As crisis continues to grow. We had talked about the last resort program to keep folks in their houses, and then the housing plan that they looked at. So not only Habitat for Humanity looking for a property, so are the housing plan for any property we may have. So as I mentioned earlier, as we're deliberating and looking at properties and in our sessions, we'll look at those properties that could be available for that use. There was an announcement of the committee of council for the county, and I am on the library board and the Glen Store Dunn Lodge board, and Deputy Mayor St. Pierre is on the regional incentive program. So those are our counties, councils that we'll be representing. So we will be having committee reports on those as well, which I'll share in a few minutes. Also, there was conversations again on SD&G County Road 43 and 7 intersection. We approved the installation of some new signage that cross traffic doesn't stop, as well as we approved a sun study, as the feelings are some of the accidents are caused by sun interference with vision, so they're going to do a sun study. We also had a Summerstown Forest, a memorandum of understanding with the Summerstown Trail. And lastly, in Chesterville, they are going to be replacing the full bridge over the South Nation. That's the bypass of Chesterville. So we recommended that they do that work all in one summer, so which will be the summer, savings of $400,000, and have the project done in one season. But that means routing traffic through the village of Chesterville, which it obviously used to do before the bypass was built. Yeah. So that was approved, and that's going to be an excellent project to have that bridge done up in North Dundas. So those were the notes from County Deputy Mayor. Anything to add?
No, that's splendid.
Thank you. Splendid. Okay. We also have under 10B, a Canadian Club of Morrisburg District request for us to join. CEO Garrity, is there any specific details that I should be sharing other than what's in the agenda package? The Canadian Club is an association that has events monthly.
Yeah. The only thing I can add, Mayor Broad, is that this request did come last year to the previous council, and at that time they decided, although it's a worthwhile event, that if it was something that council wanted to do, that it would be individually based on council's preference to be a member themselves rather than the municipality, but certainly we're open to any discussion.
Sure. Maybe, unless there's other input, I do see, Township of North Dundas is a sponsor of that, and the events are held in South Dundas, so that's great. Maybe there are some events in March and April, and if we attend, and it's something that we feel we could bring back to the council more information, but maybe we should attend one if anybody's interested and get some more details. Is that good follow-up? Okay, perfect. South Nation federal application support May 2022 private woodlot storm recovery. So that's the in a memorandum that's in your package. Any comments or questions on that memorandum? Anything?
Thank you, Mayor Broad. So this actually came from the South Nation just late last week. We thought it would be probably prudent to bring this forward to council to see if there's a resolution that they wanted to support in regards to woodlot and obtaining some funding through South Nation. As you can see, the proposal is due by February 16th, so our next meeting wouldn't have been until February 13th, so we're looking for some direction from council, whether they want to support the resolution that's attached or certainly can alter it if need be.
Yeah, so staff would be looking for direction to have a forward letter to them before the deadline, correct?
Yes.
I would support that.
You'd support that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good. So I have a motion then that the municipality of South Dundas supports South Nation Conservation Program proposal to the Government of Canada's 2 billion tree program. Council direct staff to forward a letter to South Nation Conservation prior to the application deadline of February 16th. Motion by Councillor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Review of council remuneration. Acting Treasurer Lachlan McDonald is going to join us and maybe share a few details, please.
Yeah, sorry for that delay coming up. I was just writing notes on what you were saying there. And thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So last council asked us to do a remuneration review just for them to start the conversation. We brought it forth in June. The timing was somewhat poor given the incoming election. So in front of you is that report. That's exactly what they received. I will let you know that your compensation or remuneration is tied to ours. So naturally, by that 5.2%, it is across all of those. So you would be seeing that increase too, and that is also included in the budget. You can see the mileage rates. North Dundas uses a 3-month average of the past 3 months, and then there's a sliding scale. I believe the counties use it as well as one other municipality. Looking on page 116, you can see that your compensation for committee meetings is fairly central. Councillor per diems full day are at the highest amount in South SDNG. Looking on page 117, and this is where you'll see the consistency of, much like staff wages there were lower, so you'll see the mayor is at 27,000 at the low end of the SDNG, I guess, comparators, and South Stormont's at the high end at 38,000. Page 118 of your agenda shows the deputy mayor similarly at 17,000 and the highest being 25,000. Councillor at large is at 13,000, and councillor at large, we use that one because North Glengarry has some wards, but we just took the at large one. It's most comparable, but everybody else is at large, much like yourselves. The highest is South Glengarry at 19,500. Those are your base compensations. Now there's a lot of flavor to how you compensate people. Difference for travel. Some municipalities have expense accounts. There's benefits plans. I know the counties are on OMERS. Some municipalities do provide child care. None of the ones locally, I believe, provide child care up to $3,000, but these are all, I guess, that suite of products that can attract interested candidates or individuals. So that was the staff report as presented, and that, if you go, I guess we're going to page 122, it kind of shows that base remuneration, all three kind of lined up just to give an image of where they are, and I mean, it's pretty obvious, the conclusion you can draw there. And then if I skip ahead, and I don't have the page because I think it's 131, because I think there's 2 page numbers on top of each other. You can see the total compensation. That was a new image I added, just kind of showing the compensation of the whole of council comparatively to SDNG. And in looking at page 127, you'll see the deputy mayor's salary. This is the percentage difference between the mayor and the deputy, just to show. I'm missing my word, but the wrong word is discrepancy. Disparity, that's the word, yeah. And maybe, I don't know if that has a negative tone more than I want, but like the disparity would be is that you can see the mayor's base salary versus deputy mayor versus council at large. For example, in South Dundas, the mayor makes double what the councillors do, whereas in South Glengarry, they make 50% more than what the councillors do. So there's all sorts of conversation that can come from this. What I'm trying to say, I guess, I see Deputy Mayor St. Pierre trying to figure out what I was trying to say. So let's do it with a number. In South Dundas, if a councillor makes $10, the mayor makes $20. That's what that would be. Sorry. And the numbers, yeah, they're not so simple. And in South Glengarry, if the councillor makes $10, the mayor makes $15.30 essentially. And then again, I put this slideshow together. So 128, I had mentioned that. Mileage rates, I had mentioned that too. And it really was just to bring it in front of you, because the previous council at that time, it wasn't agreeable to talk about going into an election, but it is now 4 years until the next election. So perhaps this can be something that can be talked about at a later date. If I may impart some of the wisdom from my father, who was the county engineer for 37 years before Ben DeHaan, he would say, don't wait until year 4, because it's never popular to go 0, 0, 0, 10. And it's also not popular to go 0, 0, 0, 0. We're giving the next guy 15. So a consistent practice to this also would behoove you for just even politically, but also on the expectations that you have yourselves. And you can also look at making the base compensation, I don't know, is that part of the compensation review? I didn't ask. No, okay. Well, you could do your own mini compensation review because you're probably facing similar headwinds as the as administration. Although we don't hire you, you guys get hired by the community every 4 years. Thank you. And if you have any questions, glad to answer.
Yeah, well, thank you, Treasurer McDonald. Appreciate the thoughts. I think it's important at this time while we're talking wages and we're talking CPI and we're doing an org review that we're quite transparent on what, where, and what we make, which is great to have this data right in front of us and to the public at this time. I would think that we would want to deal with this during our term at some point, but I'm sure it's not something we maybe want to enter discussions tonight unless anybody has any specific questions or comments for Council. Councillor Ward?
I just wanted to say that unfortunately we've been left with this decision to make for our term, which is a bit of a, in my mind, a pecuniary interest because it directly impacts the money we get. I think moving forward, I would like to see us make a decision for the next council as well, because I'm sure the public is aware and staff are aware it's very awkward to be sitting here talking about what we do and do not deserve to make. I wish the last council would have made that decision for us, but they didn't, so we'll have to make it. I don't have any idea, to be honest with you, what we should or should not do. I think everyone here can say that they didn't take this position to make more money. So I'm quite comfortable with whatever we decide as a team. But I just wanted to mention that I do think that for the next council, we should probably look at, setting a consistent rate like Mr. McDonald acknowledged, that way I think moving forward it's not such an awkward discussion every year or every 4 years or whatnot. I think we'd be doing the next council maybe, I don't want to speak for them, but a favor.
Yes.
So I think when we look at that, I'd like to look at also the next 4 years as well at the same time.
We could do our homework and select the best practice going forward at some point during our term. Yes. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Broad, Mayor Broad. I agree it is awkward. For me, I just spoke about staff and where my position was in terms of increases. I'm surely not going to be saying I deserve an increase above what staff deserves. When it comes down to it, we are decision makers, but it's the staff that really operate and maintain the municipality. So, I echo with Daniel, Councillor Ward has said. I'm not in this for the money. Certainly, never crossed my mind. It is nice to have it for sure. I think though, for the level of effort that we put into this role, certainly, even the top dollar, in my opinion, isn't enough. But that's not why I certainly got into being a municipal councillor or a deputy mayor at this term. So. No, I'm okay with leaving the rates as is, and I agree. I think we should come up with a formula again, whether it's a couple % every year, and that's it, or whatever the formula may be. But certainly, in good conscience, I can't say that I want to get a 5.2% increase when I just sat here and said that I was recommending a 4% for staff. So, again. I understand that you come with this report to kind of generate discussion. I prefer to have reports to generate discussion for tonight, not for the future. That's just my opinion. That's just the way I am. But yeah, no, I'm fine with what I receive, and I can't in good conscience say that I want a 5.2% raise when I just said again that staff, I was recommending 4 for staff. So
Excellent.
thank you.
Treasurer?
Yes, and through you, Mr. Mayor Broad, sorry. Just for the benefit of those viewers listening, in this discussion, it is an uncomfortable discussion. I It's not a pecuniary interest, though, that there is room, but it feels like it. But for the benefit of the audience, because they don't see this if they haven't read the agenda, in what we're talking about, South Dundas, like as a whole, your council, this I guess the public they make $86,000, whereas the next highest is $99,000. So just so that they're aware, if somebody listens in after the numbers we're talking about, and the highest is $117,000. So this is not it's an uncomfortable conversation, but I think it's one that should be had from the Treasury perspective, in fairness to you.
Understood. Thank you. I think we'll take the topics. Now we have the details, and we can include it in future discussions. And I thank you for that, Councillor Ward.
May I just ask a question, Mayor Broad,
Yes.
and perhaps when they come back with the information report, I'm not sure how we would gather this data, so I apologize for not formally coming to you with an actual plan. Perhaps we can work out something later, but for people who would like to run for council in the future, looking at what their roadblocks are with regards to if it's compensation or if it's, if there's other items on here, like I've noticed you've outlined a few novel approaches to remuneration, like the total compensation conversation, that we had previously. If maybe you could come back. I'm not sure how you would gather that information, and like I said, I'll work with you guys to maybe figure that out, but I think it would be a worthwhile discussion because I think we want people to be involved in the public process, and in the future we want people to run for these positions, and I'd like to make sure that if we're looking at wages, we're not just looking at wages, we're looking at total compensation and what the roadblocks are for people running. So perhaps a different discussion at a different time, but maybe when you bring that information back in the future, we could look at that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to attendees. Since there was a library board meeting, and I'll just share some of the details with that at the county council level, just for information's sake. So we do have 15 branches of the county library, and there's 3 in South Dundas, Iroquois, Morrisburg, Williamsburg. At our meeting, we elected Margaret McDonald the chair, Warden Tony Fraser vice chair, and we elected Karen Franklin, CEO, secretary, treasurer. Karen has been involved with the library and the counties for many years, and she has given her resignation as of July 1st. So she'll be missed, but we will look for a replacement for her. We've set our meeting schedule. There is a membership campaign beginning in February 1st, so I lobby anybody that doesn't have a library card to get a library card and use our facilities. There's wonderful things for all ages in our community libraries, and if you've never checked them out, please check us out. And lastly, there is a review on the books for the library board, and the library committee will review that, and we won't be actioning all those items that are in the review, but we'll certainly be considering them, and more details to come on that. Are there any notices of motions? Item discussions for future? Seeing none, I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-04, being a law to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed. Councillor Ward motions, seconder. Councillor Vino, all in favor? Carried. And I have a motion to adjourn at the call of the chair. Councillor Smith and Councillor Ward. And before we sign off, and in closing, I'd like to thank everybody for attending and their viewership for the meeting of January 30th. I'd like to thank the delegations that we had tonight. I'd also like to thank all of our teams. Been a super busy month the last few weeks with the fire emergency service, wastewater, roads, lots of snowstorms. But I'd also like to really thank the group in Treasury and admin for their preparation for Friday's budget meeting. Many hours go into that, so in preparation of that, I'd like to thank all the Treasury group and the administrators that helped on that one. So on behalf of the council team, I'd like to thank everybody for working on tonight's agenda and being here. And until our next meeting, which is a Friday budget meeting, I'd like to say all those that are connected to South Dundas, the team is proud to represent